I never believed in surveillance inside a marriage. Trust, I used to say, was the real security system. But trust doesn't explain the way Elena had started drifting, how her laughter no longer belonged to me, how her eyes avoided mine even when we shared the same bed. The camera was supposed to be temporary. A simple indoor security cam aimed at the living room after a string of neighborhood break-ins. That's what I told her. She barely looked up from her phone when I installed it. Do what you need to do, she said, voice distant. That night, she went to bed early. I stayed up, scrolling aimlessly, until the notification pinged on my phone, motion detected. I almost ignored it. On screen, Elena stood barefoot in the living room, hair loose, wearing the soft cotton shirt she only wore when she thought no one was watching. She paced slowly, phone pressed to her ear, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. She laughed. Not a polite laugh. Not a habit laugh. A real one. I turned up the volume, but the audio was faint. I could see her lips move, her fingers tracing the edge of the couch. She leaned back against the wall and closed her eyes as if savoring the voice on the other end. That was the moment something inside me shifted. The next few nights, I checked the footage obsessively. At first, it was harmless, late calls, quiet pacing, whispers. But then I noticed patterns. The way she stood just outside the camera's full view. The way she placed objects, small wrapped boxes, envelopes, behind the bookshelf, exactly where the lens couldn't see. She knew the blind spots. I hadn't told her about them. One night, I watched as she slipped on a jacket at midnight and opened the door. A man stepped inside. My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't tall or dramatic. Just ordinary. The kind of man who wouldn't draw attention on the street. He didn't touch her right away. They stood close, speaking softly. Then she reached for his hand. That gesture destroyed me more than a kiss would have. She led him carefully, always guiding him away from the camera's gaze. Always hiding. I sat frozen, phone glowing in my hand, realizing the distance I'd felt wasn't imaginary. It was intentional. And it was happening right in my house. Once you notice a lie, everything becomes evidence. I mapped the camera's blind spots like a crime scene. The corner near the bookshelf. The shadow behind the curtain. The angle by the hallway where the light didn't quite reach. Elena moved through them like she'd memorized them. Because she had. I found the first letter by accident while vacuuming. Cream-colored paper folded neatly, tucked behind a stack of old magazines. My hands shook as I opened it. I still feel you when I close my eyes. No name. No signature. Just longing. That night, I watched the footage again. The man returned, same careful entrance, same hushed closeness. They didn't rush into anything physical. Instead, they sat on opposite ends of the couch, knees almost touching, tension thick enough to choke on. She brushed her fingers against his wrist. He leaned closer. Their foreheads touched. I felt like I was intruding on something sacred and wrong at the same time. Days passed. Weeks. I became a ghost in my own marriage. Elena smiled at me during breakfast, kissed my cheek, asked about my day. Meanwhile, she hid gifts that smelled like unfamiliar cologne and letters filled with intimate memories I didn't recognize. One evening, I followed her. She didn't notice me across the street as she met him outside a small cafe. They didn't kiss. They talked. Laughed. Her hand rested casually on his thigh beneath the table. It was worse than sex. Because it meant this wasn't just desire. It was connection. That night, when she climbed into bed beside me, she curled against my chest like she always had. Her body fit perfectly, familiar and warm. My hands rested on her waist, but my mind replayed the footage, the way she leaned into someone else, the way she smiled for him. She whispered my name softly. I almost broke then. The truth revealed itself slowly, cruelly. I finally gathered everything she'd hidden, the letters, the gifts, a small velvet box containing a necklace she never wore around me. Each item felt like proof of a life she lived parallel to ours. But the final discovery shattered my assumptions. One letter wasn't romantic. It was apologetic. I didn't plan for this. I swear I didn't. But you woke something in me I thought was gone forever. Another read. I don't know how to tell him. I don't know how to choose. Choose. That word echoed in my head. I confronted the footage one last time. Not just the meetings, but her afterward. The way she sat alone once the man left. The way she cried silently, hands covering her mouth. The way she stared at our wedding photo on the wall like it accused her. This wasn't a woman chasing excitement. This was a woman unraveling. The intimacy between her and the man remained restrained, hands lingering, breaths shared, longing suspended. It wasn't about sex. It was about escape. About feeling seen. And that realization hurt more than any betrayal. I didn't plan a speech. I didn't raise my voice. I simply placed the letters on the table between us one quiet evening. She froze. Color drained from her face as understanding dawned. She didn't deny it. She didn't lie. She sat down slowly, hands trembling. I never meant to hurt you, she said, voice breaking. Then why didn't you stop? I asked. Tears spilled freely. Because when I was with him, I remembered who I used to be. Before I felt invisible. That word, invisible, cut deep. She told me everything. How the man was someone from her past. How they reconnected by accident. How the camera's blind spots became her refuge, not her strategy. I still love you, she whispered. But I don't know who I am anymore. I believed her. And that made it unbearable. There was no dramatic ending. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just silence. We slept apart that night. In the morning, sunlight filled the living room, the same room where secrets had lived. I unplugged the camera. Not because I didn't want to see the truth. But because I already had. Some betrayals aren't born from cruelty. Some grow from loneliness left unattended. We stood at the edge of something irreversible, not hatred, but grief. And sometimes, that's the kind of heartbreak that never fully heals.